For 5 straight years, in the middle of a war, a small group of ordinary people ran a spy network so tight that not one single agent was ever caught. Britain had the largest army on Earth, the largest navy on Earth, and an entire intelligence division dedicated to hunting these people down, and they failed completely. The spies wrote in an ink that was invisible until you brushed it with the right chemical. They used laundry hanging on a clothesline as a signal. They spoke in numbers instead of names, 763 of them, so that even a captured letter meant nothing. Their methods were so sophisticated that the most powerful empire of the age never managed to uncover them. Even today, it's hard to believe that a network like this existed during the American Revolution. This is the story of the Culper Ring, the most successful spy network in American history, and the ordinary farmers, merchants, and tavern keepers who built it out of nothing. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment with your city and state, because once you see how this ordinary group of farmers, merchants, and tavern keepers managed to outsmart the most powerful empire in the world, you'll never look at espionage the same way again. The story begins in September of 1776. New York City has just fallen to the British. Washington desperately needs eyes inside the city, so he sends in a young Connecticut schoolteacher named Nathan Hale, a volunteer with almost no training, on a single mission behind enemy lines. Hale is caught almost immediately. He is hanged within days, 21 years old, with no network, no backup, and no one even coming to look for him. It is a disaster, and it teaches Washington something brutal about how not to run an intelligence operation. One man alone on one trip is not a spy network. It is a martyr waiting to happen. So Washington does something almost nobody was doing in 1778. He builds a permanent operation, not soldiers slipping behind enemy lines for a few days and slipping back out. People who already lived there. People the British would never suspect because they were not spies pretending to be locals. They were locals, quietly becoming spies. The man Washington puts in charge is a 24-year-old cavalry officer named Benjamin Tallmadge, and Tallmadge does not have to look far for his first recruit. He turns to his childhood friend from Setauket, Long Island, a farmer named Abraham Woodhull. And here is the detail that almost nobody expects. Woodhull does not start out as a patriot hero volunteering for danger. He starts out as a prisoner. In the summer of 1778, Woodhull gets caught sailing produce across the Sound into British-occupied New York to sell for hard currency, technically trading with the enemy, and he ends up locked in a jail cell. Tallmadge visits him there, and somewhere in that conversation between a farmer facing prison and an old friend offering him a way out, the most effective spy network of the American Revolution is born. Washington himself suggests the alias. Woodhull becomes Samuel Culper, a play on Culpeper County, Virginia, a place Washington had surveyed as a teenager. It is such a small, almost throwaway detail, a joke really, and it becomes the name history remembers for one of the most important intelligence operations in the country's founding. But a code name is not a spy network. What Tallmadge builds next is a machine. Woodhull travels into Manhattan under the cover of visiting his sister and starts gathering whatever he can. Troop numbers, ship movements, fortification details. He writes it down, sometimes in code, sometimes in a stain that looks like nothing on the page until it is treated with the right chemical. On his way back to Setauket, the letter goes through a courier named Austin Rowe, a local tavern keeper who makes the same brutal ride over and over, close to 55 miles each way into the most heavily guarded city in North America and back out again, using the excuse of buying tavern supplies. And then a boat captain named Caleb Brewster rows it across Long Island Sound to Connecticut in the dark. And then Tallmadge's own dragoons carry it the rest of the way to Washington's headquarters. 5 separate people, 5 separate points where it could all fall apart. One captured letter, one nervous slip, one too many questions from a British checkpoint guard, and the whole thing collapses. And it very nearly does, more than once. By the summer of 1779, Woodhull needs someone inside the city itself, someone who does not have to keep making the dangerous trip in and out. He recruits a quiet, unassuming Quaker merchant named Robert Townsend who runs a dry goods shop and a coffee house in occupied Manhattan. And this is where the operation becomes something almost unbelievable. Townsend does not hide from the British. He serves them coffee. British officers walk into his shop to escape the cold, order their goods, complain about their commanders, and casually mention troop movements and supply shipments while Townsend nods, wipes down the counter, and remembers every single word. Townsend becomes Samuel Culper Jr. He is so protective of his own identity identity that for years, even George Washington does not know who he really is, just a code name on a page. A ghost feeding some of the most important intelligence of the entire war straight into the commander's hands, and nobody at headquarters could have told you his face. Picture him for a moment, standing behind his own counter in his own shop, surrounded by the very army he is quietly working to destroy. Every conversation he overhears could be nothing, or it could be the one detail that changes everything. He cannot ask follow-up questions. He cannot write anything down while the officers are still in the room. He has to hold every word in his memory until he is alone, upstairs, with a locked door between himself and the street. Now let's talk about the code itself, because this is the part that separates the Culper Ring from every other amateur spy effort of the era. Talmadge built a numerical dictionary of 763 entries. Washington was 711, New York was 727, Setauket was 729. Ordinary words got swapped for numbers, and names never appeared at all. On top of that, there was the ink, a clear liquid developed with help from a chemist named James J. that dried completely invisible on the page. You could write an entirely innocent letter about fabric prices in plain view, and hidden underneath it, in the blank space, the real message waited for a second chemical wash to bring it into the light. British soldiers searched these letters constantly. They read the fabric prices, they found nothing, and the real war was happening in the white space they never thought to touch. There is even a story passed down for generations in Setauket about a woman named Anna Strong signaling the ring using nothing but her own laundry. A black petticoat on the clothesline meant Brewster's boat had arrived, and the number of handkerchiefs hung up beside it told Woodhull exactly which hidden cove to meet him in. Historians argue about how much of that detail is verified fact and how much is local legend passed down through family. But true or not, it captures something real about this operation. The genius of it was never really the gadgets. It was hiding in plain sight, inside the most boring, most overlooked parts of daily life. But here's what almost nobody talks about, and it is the part of this story that deserves more attention than it gets. This life was not just clever, it was terrifying. Every single day for years. Woodhull was not built for this. He was a farmer, not a soldier, and the pressure of living a double life in a town crawling with British patrols wore him down in a way that shows up right there in his own handwriting. In one letter to Talmadge, exhausted and afraid, he wrote something that still lands like a gut punch 250 years later. "We live in daily fear of death and destruction," he told his old friend. "This added to my usual anxiety that almost unmanned me." He was not a professional soldier hardened to danger. He was a young farmer, alone with a secret so heavy it was breaking him, hiding it from his own neighbors, his own father, everyone he had ever known, because telling even one person could get them all killed. Townsend felt it too. After one scare showed him exactly how easily a single mistake could unravel everything, he tried to quit entirely, and it took Talmadge himself to talk him back into it, on the condition that he would only pass information through Woodhull from then on, never directly, one more wall between himself and the noose. And then in 1780, everything the ring had built was tested at once. Whispers start reaching Setauket and Manhattan about something bigger than troop counts or supply ships. A high-ranking American officer, someone close to Washington himself, is quietly communicating with the enemy. Nobody in the ring knows the name yet. They only know something is deeply wrong, and that whatever it is, it involves the fortress at West Point, the single most important American position on the entire Hudson River. If West Point falls, the British cut the colonies in half. The war, for all practical purposes, is over. Think about what that meant for the people trying to piece this together. They were not generals reading battlefield reports. They were a farmer and a shopkeeper trying to identify a traitor inside their own army, using nothing but overheard conversations and a gut feeling that something did not add up. One wrong guess, one name whispered to the wrong person, and they could destroy an innocent officer's reputation, or worse, tip off the real traitor before anyone could stop him. According to accounts passed down through the Townsend family, it was Robert's own sister Sarah who first noticed something strange. A mysterious visitor at their family home in Oyster Bay going by the name John Anderson overheard talking a little too specifically about the weaknesses in West Point's defenses. Word moved fast after that, and when a British officer was captured days later near Tarrytown with incriminating papers hidden inside his boot, the pieces came together almost instantly. John Anderson was actually Major John Andre, the British spy chief. and the American officer secretly working with him was Benedict Arnold, one of Washington's own generals. Arnold escaped by minutes, fleeing down the river to a waiting British ship before he could be arrested. But André was not so fortunate. He was hanged as a spy on October 2nd, 1780, and West Point, the fortress that could have split the revolution in two, stayed exactly where it belonged. You've probably heard some version of this story with a mysterious woman spy at the center of it, often called Agent 355, supposedly the one who cracked the whole plot open. It makes for a great legend. Most serious historians who have actually gone through the letters will tell you it is almost entirely invented, built from a single vague reference to an unnamed lady in one letter and inflated into a character who was never really there. The real story does not need her. The real story is quiet, ordinary people noticing something was wrong and refusing to let it go. That same year, the Ring pulled off something almost as important and far less dramatic. When French troops under Rochambeau were preparing to land at Newport, Rhode Island, to reinforce Washington's army, the British commander in New York was ready to intercept them before they had even recovered from the voyage. Using intelligence gathered in part through the Culper network, Washington fed the British a piece of false information suggesting an attack on New York itself. Clinton kept his forces exactly where they were, and the French army landed, unopposed, exactly when the alliance needed it most. Two different plots, 2 different years, and in both cases the war kept moving forward instead of ending in disaster, because a handful of people who had never fired a shot in battle were paying close attention in coffee houses and cattle fields. The Ring kept operating until the summer of 1782, quietly winding down as the war moved toward its close. And by the time British troops finally evacuated New York in 1783, something remarkable had happened that almost never happens in the history of espionage. Not one single member of the Culper Ring had ever been unmasked by the British. Not Woodhull, not Townsend, not Brewster or Rowe. They went back to their ordinary lives, farming, running shops, sitting on local courts, and they simply never told anyone what they had done. Woodhull died in 1826, having never spoken a word of it to his own children. Townsend carried the secret all the way to his grave in 1838. It would take a historian working with old handwriting samples more than 100 years later to finally prove who Samuel Culper really was. And maybe that is the part of this story that deserves to sit with you the longest. These were not professional spies with training and cover identities built by an agency. They were a farmer, a merchant, a tavern keeper, and a boat captain. Ordinary people who decided that keeping a secret perfectly for the rest of their lives was simply the price of the country they wanted to exist. No parades, no medals, no one even knowing their names until long after they were gone. If that isn't the quietest, bravest kind of patriotism this country was built on, it's hard to imagine what is. If you want more stories like this, ones about the people history almost forgot, stick around because this channel is just getting started.